Development Committee of April 12th, 2022. And I'm Mark Weber. To my left is Jonathan Smith, Tim McCarthy, Amber Rathburn, Finance Director, Deputy Finance Director Kayla Trago. Steve Browner is our Tax Commissioner. And Bridget Cabot is joining us tonight off the camera. So, everyone. So, our approval of the prior month's minutes. Any objections? You want to do? Nope. Okay. Hearing none, those are approved. While we still have also present is Kelly Chalfant. To answer, just happens to be here, and Jonathan has a question.
Yeah,
HR related.
I was looking through the credit card backups, and I noticed that the utilities department purchases labor law posters, and I was curious if that's not something the HR provides to all the departments, or is that something each department has to? And this could be a question for Bridget too.
No, actually, we have a subscription to a service for that, so that may be a purchase that was done either maybe some got lost or damaged to replace something, but we do have a subscription service through the Employers Association that provides this to us annually, and then if there's any updates, typically I charge that out of my budget. But so I'm not sure about any charges on utilities bills. I'm happy to talk to Alice or Matt or wherever those posters were purchased, but yes, I do have a subscription to take care of those.
That's what I thought we had that conversation before, and so that's what I was surprised to see.
That was typically the clearinghouse.
It's $506 for a labor law poster 3-year plan.
And that's out of
That came from Matt Shoma's credit card.
I'll be happy to talk to him.
Okay.
I know that HR is already taking care of that.
Yeah, because it looked like when I looked up the company, it was one of those ones that you get in the mail that make it seem like it's a.
Yeah, it looks like a legitimate bill. I'll have a chat with him.
Okay.
I'll mention it at staff meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be ideal for staff tomorrow morning. I'll take care of that.
Okay, thanks.
It'll be a good reminder for everybody.
Yes.
And then, and Bridget, I have a question for you at this point, then, if you don't mind. And one of the other charges, there was, I know I was kind of mentioned this to you beforehand, that I noticed that it looked like the police division, and I can't seem to get my screen to switch here, had it was a $95.40 for yearly payment for an internet domain name. And I was just curious because I assumed that everything would be running through our IT department on things like that. But if there's
that should absolutely be the case. And you said it was $9
Yep.
and
It's actually for court, Bridget. It's $95.40. It's coming out of their 238 fund, which is their special computer projects. I forget the exact name.
So it's for the actual court?
It's
okay.
Yes, it's not police, it's court.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, well, that answers
thank you.
the couple questions I had on all the backups.
I'm like, I don't know why they got their own domain.
At least you guys know that I'm going through every single one.
Nice.
All righty. Are you ready, Glenn, to present to us? All right. Floor is yours. Mr. Glenn Grisdale.
Thank you, everyone. It's nice to see you. It's nice to come to a meeting when people are here. I came last week.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So today serves as my status report to you, this committee, in regards to our Tax Incentive Review Committee and the incentive monitoring that we did for fiscal year 2021. We had our meeting on the 23rd of March, and no issues were reported. We currently have 14 businesses with CRA abatements, and we monitored 12 of those CRAs in one tax increment financing zone at Levis Commons. We no longer have any active enterprise zone agreements in the city. Companies exceeded or met their performance standards in regards to the property investment, job creation, and payroll, even with complications with COVID. I added up all the jobs that had been retained or created based upon our agreements with those 12 businesses, and we had about 749 jobs retained and 322 jobs created from the businesses that have CRA agreements with us, for a combined payroll of about $84.9 million. So those jobs, when divided into the $84.9 million, comes to about $80,000 per job created or retained. which is a pretty good threshold or a good a benchmark. All the school donation agreements are current, have been invoiced and expected pay. When I did this status report a few weeks ago, there was one other that hadn't paid yet, but that was due to them mailing it or hand walking it to the schools, and the schools were closed, so they had to coordinate with Becky Sparrow. So that's been paid. So there's no outstanding invoices, and there's no tax delinquencies. I like to look at this program as a good example of economic gardening, and so about 70% of the enterprises that have CRA incentive agreements are locally owned Stage 1 or Stage 2 businesses. And those across America create most of the jobs. About 80% of those jobs are from Stage 1 or Stage 2 businesses. This number was higher. It was at 82%, but with the inclusion of ProMedica and Yark Automotive into the CRA program, I don't look at them as local. I mean, one was in White House or Toledo, but I'm looking kind of as Perrysburg proper. But we were at 84%. And now we're at about 70% of all the abatements that we have are with locally owned Stage 1 or 2 companies. We had one CRA that was approved in 2021, which was the ProMedica Toledo Hospital. That project is underway, and they're still looking for, I'm still working with Mark on the specifics of who the private enterprise will be that would purchase that, and we would then come back and transfer their agreement over to the private entity. I'm still working on that. But other than that, we have no issues in 2021 with any business that we had for the CRA program.
Is that ProMedica one is that why we're not, you say we're monitoring just 12, there's 14 total, one of them's a TIF, so you say we're monitoring 12, so at 12 and one's 13, so is the ProMedica one that we're just not monitoring yet?
Correct, and
Okay.
the other one that hasn't started yet is the CAT project.
And CAT?
Yeah.
Okay.
The CAT will begin next year, and ProMedica may begin next year, maybe 2024.
And then the one Levis property, it ends this year.
Yep, OI Levis property.
What date? I mean, how? Soon this year.
That is, well, it ended, so it'll go on the tax rolls. It's back on the tax roll now. That was
Okay.
Ron Welty's property that is immediately south of the OI headquarters there along Michael Owens Way. It's on the
Oh, okay.
west side of the road. That was a project that I believe a local architect had purchased and started, and then 07, 08, the recession hit, and it was an empty shell. And we worked with Ron to put some added investment in there, and he needed the CRA program. Yeah.
Quick question.
Yeah.
I know with some of these businesses, I don't know if these businesses are, but some in the community are still staying with remote work. But how is that going to change anything moving forward with these CRAs? Because I know with and Steve might be able to touch on this a little more as well, with the remote work, the tax and location isn't necessarily the city of Perrysburg, but where those individuals reside. And I know that's one of the incentives to do these CRAs, to create the jobs for the income tax portion of it.
Sure.
So how is that going to look moving forward in this next year? Or is there anything that we should be looking at specifically on these? Or
Yeah, no, that's a good question. All I know is what I can see from one of the businesses that has a CRA, which is OI. And, like a big headquarters, you drive by there and you say, wow, where are the employees at? A lot of them are working remotely. Their payroll numbers this year were at about 60, well, from what they reported, about $68 million. Last year, they were at about 70, I think, around 70-ish. Now, when it comes to the income taxes and reciprocity and all that stuff, and I know there's legislation pending with the state of Ohio with certain cities and, filing for where you work rather than where you're employed, or where you live. I have no idea how that's going to pan out. So all I can tell you is when we monitor businesses, we hold them to the number of jobs that they had indicated that they're going to create and retain, as well as the property investment that they say they're going to make. And then if they don't have any zoning violations or whatnot like that, and they pay the schools their portion of the school donation agreement, then those are really the benchmarks that we use to hold them, put their feet to the fire. So.
it's a whole new algorithm to add into this.
Yeah, it is. So I know there was something, I read a brief from the Ohio Municipal League about legislation of the state of Ohio in regards to reciprocity, and I don't know where
Yeah, there's two different things going on with regards to the withholding for principal place of work. One of them is retroactive to 2020 tax year. And that is currently going through litigation, okay, and is not necessarily addressed by some of the more current state law. And at this point, Buckeye Institute, they have like 4 different cases out there. One is with the City of Columbus, one's with Toledo, one's with Cleveland, one's with Cincinnati. My understanding is the one that was in Columbus has already gone through the appeals, and Buckeye Institute appealed to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has denied hearing the case. So at that point, it's in essence ruled in favor from the appellate court as well as Franklin County Common Pleas Court in favor of the municipalities. Okay.
So they were suing to.
Still waiting for the Cleveland, Toledo, and Cincinnati ones to finish their appeals. But at this point, we have a precedent that is in favor of the municipalities, meaning that we won't have to refund the withholdings for 2020 to employees that worked from home during that tax year. 2021 has been addressed in state legislation, and they overrode the governor's emergency order. And so for 2021, we are giving refunds back to those who worked at home and not their principal place of work, even though their employer continued to withhold. Going forward, we're going to have probably a mishmash of hybrid approach. Some people are going to be virtual now, and they won't be coming into the office at all. Some people will be back in the office, and so I think, to Glenn's point, we don't really have a crystal ball, and so we don't really know how that's going to really shape up. That's for 2022. That's one of the things that Amber and I are kind of watching closely. Later this month, we expect to have our withholding numbers for the third month, and at that point, we'll have the first quarter of 2022. Later this month, that we'll be able to sit down and make some comparisons. But I will share with you right now, if we look at the first 3 months, the overall withholdings are up about 2.5% compared with the same time period last year, which is good news. But we are monitoring the larger accounts. And the larger accounts, we look at like the top 7, we're about 5% down on our larger accounts. So I think what we're seeing is a combination of some of our existing employers having less people coming into the city, more virtual employees, so their withholdings are dropping. But the individuals who didn't used to work here in Perrysburg and now they're working from home, we've seen an increase in the number of active withholding accounts. And so we're seeing other employers that potentially weren't withholding Perrysburg city tax prior are now withholding. So we're kind of watching to see how this seesaw ends up at the end of the year.
Here's it just dawned on me. So the only other the employer that we would worry about the most would be OI in this situation, because they would have people working really. But when I'm looking at the businesses that have active abatements, IS Leverage Poverty dumped off. OI is dumped off. It's the last abatement. Alpha Kilo, Tarp Stop, they have to have hands-on because of what they do. Commerce Medical Partners, Hope Mitchell, they're dermatologists. It's hard to do skin work remote.
They're staying put, yeah.
Yeah, 19.9, they're optometrists. Finance people, Citizen Holding, cutting edge countertops, they're cutting quartz. And,
They have to be
They
there.
got to be there. St. Luke's Hospital, you got to have the physicians over there. Yark Automotive.
Doing that.
Although it'll be interesting to see where car dealerships are going.
Oh, yeah.
GM sent a letter out to all of their dealerships saying it's a $25 million buy-in to do electric and convert. And so there's going to be a lot of GM dealerships that don't have the money. It's an interesting landscape, but 3rd Street Market, that is something that's all service-related, so we won't have to worry about those jobs. So, and then CAT, and then Toledo Hospital. So I think our jobs will be fairly good.
So with the CRA too, and that's job created, what is the exact terminology of that when we create a CRA. I know we use job creation. Is it just jobs creation in general, or is it jobs creation within the city of Perrysburg?
It has to be within the city of Perrysburg.
Okay.
Yeah, jobs created.
So that could be a way of capturing, because of that terminology, that it would have to be created here, not virtual
Right.
job at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the program under Ohio Revised Code just simply states that, one, they've got to make the property improvement, and then they've got to create and retain jobs. But there's really no threshold of what number of jobs is perfect. That's allowable for each community to decide what those number of jobs looks like. I always advise not to have a set threshold of jobs, but there's some municipalities that say, you have to have so many jobs created or retained to get into the CRA. And I'm kind of against that, because you can have a business that creates 5 jobs with a $5 million payroll, really high payroll.
Should it all be relative? The only concern I have moving forward is with this move to the virtual is for the future in the CRAs. I think that's something we should have as part of these agreements, is looking at, is this going to be created here in the city, or is it going to be something you're creating virtually in another community that won't be necessarily part of the income tax moving forward?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it's not putting a cap on the number of jobs, but just saying, hey, we want you to create jobs, we want to create it here locally.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense.
Glenn, you mentioned Third Street Market, and they show currently 39 full-time employees. Would that be just for inside the 5? Because there's really not much else open over there. They have that many employees?
Let me see.
The residential group, I believe, in that building.
Is there something else in there now? So,
There's another one moving in.
Yeah, there's-
As we speak today, they were looking.
well, they should easily get their 60 jobs once the
Well, sure, when
Rosita
Rosita's opens.
opens, yeah.
Yeah, they'll have, I think, another 50 or more FTEs
Great.
over there.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
So I just talked to Matt today about a project over at Country Charm, the potential CRA and what that might look like to reimagine, re-envision, repurpose.
Ken's Flower?
Basically, the whole facility.
Oh.
Yeah. So we may be back, at least in front of the planning and zoning, to talk about some of that mixed-use stuff.
It's in our land use plan.
Yeah.
First thing moving.
We'll get creative about what a project might look like and how we can incentivize it. Nowadays, with today's commodity prices and labor, and how long do you have to wait for the funny money to burn out of the economy?
Stuff that I couldn't hear lately.
Any other questions?
Any other questions, anyone? No. Thanks so much.
Steve got a new haircut?
Steve?
You get a new haircut? I don't know if people get the haircut.
Not as short as yours, but
This is my choice. This is my choice.
shots fired.
Ooh.
You got longer facial hair.
Well, that's right. That's just easier to grab.
That's right. It's just placed differently, yeah.
Well, it's nice seeing you all.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. All righty. Well, then we'll move on to item 3 is the establishment of the new fund for One Ohio.
Okay, you had at the last council meeting, the MOU for the opiate settlement, which is called One Ohio. The Auditor of State requires that we separate those funds, so this legislation is just to set up a new fund just for that.
Sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
There.
Anything we need to do, or?
I guess we're just, what?
Yeah, there is legislation if you want to vote
Yeah, there's,
forward it on to
and it's a non-emergency,
council.
so
Correct.
just all we have to do is approve and move it on. Tim? Yep. All right, there's 3 over that. We're gonna go right down the list. The next one's Delta Dental renewal.
Okay, we've been with Delta Dental for several years. They have not had an increase in their rates with us since 2016.
Wow.
This year, they came back originally with 11% increase, and our broker, Matt Holzmer, did get them down to only 5%. And he recommends staying with Delta Dental. We haven't had any issues with them. He doesn't like to change normally unless it's like a 7 to 8% increase. So he recommends staying with them at the 5%. And like I said, nothing's increased since 2016. So No benefits are changing or anything like that. It's just a renewal.
Is there a typo in the comparison sheet they sent over? Because I noticed that there was one for Guardian, it said ASO, and was only showing, I think, $10,000. It said 92% reduction. The very far right corner.
Is that administrative services only?
More curious about what that was set to cover than anything else.
Yeah, I'm.
Wouldn't be the first
thinking-
time I've seen a typo on something like this.
Right, I'm trying to remember, I can talk with Savage. This may have been for self-insured as we are for health insurance. I think one of them that Matt presented was that, and it has to be that one because it doesn't compare at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And see, you got a Guardian quote, and you got a Guardian ASO.
Yeah.
I assume that the ASO really isn't pertinent.
I think it's basically self-insured where we would pay any of the claims. But I can check for sure.
Just more curious than anything else.
Oh, exactly.
Because that's a little bit of a difference. Services look the same, but if that's not necessarily the case, if it's self-insured and we're paying more out, then it's, it looks great on paper.
Right, but we would have claims on top of that.
Yeah.
And this one you want us to move forward with an emergency?
Yes, please.
Just to keep it going, right?
Well, I think it had to go as of April 1st.
April 1st.
Oh, all right, okay. No issues then?
We're just going for in that comparison sheet, the middle one, the Premier, or is it just the network?
It's the
Oh, that's the current one, so we're doing the revised renewal.
revised renewal.
Okay.
Yes, it's the 5% at the very bottom.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's not wrong on staying unless there's a significant change.
Right. It's a lot to re-enroll everyone and,
And not just that, but then our employees may not have the same dentist.
yes.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I'm okay with moving forward. I just would be curious on that.
Yes.
Answer that
I
question.
will check for sure.
You too, Tim?
Yep.
All righty, there's another 3-0. And then the commercial card agreement.
Okay, this is an agreement with Huntington Bank, who we already have for our banking. A little history, this came up, there's a vendor that we need to pay over the summer, and they only take credit cards. And it's gonna be a $13,000 charge. It's basically for our Microsoft Office is what it is. And we do, in our policy, have a limit per transaction of $2,500, so I had to look into other ways to deal with this. I talked to our representatives at Huntington, and they offer what they call a virtual card. It's a one-time credit card number with the expiration and a 3-digit code on the back like you're used to. It has very specific credentials where I can put in the exact amount, the dates, who it pays to, everything like that. And it's just randomly selected, and then it can pay to them. So it's not like we would be using anyone's credit card that we have through Bank of America. This would be through Huntington and basically a one-time generated virtual credit card to pay that item. And then going forward, eventually we may link this up to our accounts payable, and any vendors that accept credit cards, as long as they don't charge us fees, I don't like fees, we could pay them directly through that, and then eventually maybe even earn rewards, cashback would be credited to the general fund just like we do right now with any interest earnings. So that's the plan eventually, but this again started as we have this large payment due this summer. How are we gonna pay with a credit card?
Okay.
Questions on that one?
Bridget, wouldn't you let you use hers?
No, we have a limit.
I make a
It's-
label mine, I don't have mine.
But you're happy with Bank of America for all of our other transactions and that, right?
For right now, yes.
All right.
Eventually, I mean, we don't have any rewards or anything tied to those. Eventually, maybe we
Yeah.
will.
Maybe-
Want to change so we can, earn, especially if we're paying vendors, some of those payments could really add up. Huntington already has a list of specific vendors, and they want to do like a match that it would show us who we already pay that they accept credit cards for free, and then we could take advantage of rewards.
Oh, okay.
Is that what the rebate term is on this agreement?
Yes.
I was going to ask about that
Yes.
because I know banking tends to have different terminologies
Yes,
than what you typically see in other avenues of accounting.
yeah.
All right.
Any questions?
I have none. You guys okay to move forward with that one?
Makes sense.
Yes.
Great.
Now the next one is the credit card policy.
Yes, and so this goes with the one right before it. I need to update the credit card policy so we can allow the use of these virtual cards. And I want to reference that we won't pay any fees to vendors and also allow for the rewards and rebates. And then, again, that would be credited to the general fund, just like right now, any interest is credited to the general fund. So this is just kind of housekeeping to clear up our
Right.
policy.
Especially like that you put no payment shall be made to vendors that charge a fee for using the
Yes.
virtual card. Is that something that we should, because I know he says virtual card, is that going to affect anything with the credit cards that are distributed out?
I don't like fees.
Well, I just know that sometimes, looking at that Bank of America statement, sometimes there are fees that they
Occasionally,
do
if there's
charge.
online,
Or like restaurants have, a lot of the restaurants are now charging a fee when you use a credit card.
that is true.
So that's something that,
I guess if we wanted to add something specific or maybe under a certain amount, I don't know if you have any suggestions.
We could think of that.
Yeah, I hadn't prepared anything on that, but yeah, you're right, it's,
Maybe what we can do is over the course of the next couple months, look and see what's coming in, to see if we can identify if there's certain vendors that do charge, and then we just avoid said vendor.
I know that you're not going to be able to avoid a restaurant if you,
right, or I've
You go to a
seen it,
different one.
What do you mean, like when they're out of town at a conference or something?
right. They're also minimal, but some trainings have, when you have to sign up online, I've seen a $3 charge, something minimal.
maybe we could put in there's no lot, the fee is no more than $10.
I like the limit, because it's usually percentage and
Yeah,
you're not
because
gonna hit that.
I
it's
just
pretty
don't
hard to
know
hit that
if
on a
people would be
punch.
cognizant at the time of usage of the card, what the fee even was.
Sometimes you don't catch it till after, because
After
I know when we
it's
were on vacation, I didn't notice it till the second time we went to the same restaurant. And oh, they do charge a fee, but
Yeah, I've seen it more, because the vendors pay
Yeah.
for the fees, yeah.
so that might be something. I almost wonder if we should not update that portion of the language until we get a better idea. Even though we're all in agreement that we don't really want to have to pay fees if we don't want to. My only concern is, are we going to put any employee in a liability situation on that?
Well, this language though is specific to a virtual card, which nobody's gonna have but finance department.
Okay.
Yeah, we still have, the Bank of America is just as
Yeah,
going to stay
versus
the way
versus
the way it
credit
is,
card.
right?
But I guess that we don't have an attorney here to say, well, what's the definition of virtual if you enter it in?
Online. True.
Right, 'cause I
That's how you
would
look
say
at
the
it, yeah.
definition of that virtual card is we're getting it specifically through Huntington.
So this,
And they're
um,
assigning a one-time number and expiration date and security code versus a credit card, which is a established number that is used multiple times.
so is this resolution specific to the Huntington card only, for this credit card
The
policy,
credit
or is that
card
across the board?
policy is adding language to the credit card policy, referencing a new item, a virtual.
Okay, we're adding language.
But it also says in the line, and I know we got an attorney here, so.
Yeah.
It says, in addition to traditional corporate credit cards, then it goes into add on the virtual card, and then it says afterwards, no payment shall be made. But I don't know if that's, I know I'm really diving into the wording on this. But it does mention in addition to the corporate credit cards in reference to the virtual credit cards, and then the no fees for the virtual credit card. I don't know if you.
I feel like
When
in
you read
addition
it,
to us referencing that the
I
finance
didn't print that
department
one out.
is able
Oh,
to
it's
issue.
just, there's the language right there.
I really love to get lost in the weeds, so.
Is the entity in the city that issues credit cards, so this is giving them the authority to issue not only credit cards, but a virtual card, but the virtual card is essentially going to be held only by the finance department. Because they're the ones that'll have to set up a transaction with the bank.
Jonathan, what's your concern?
Well, I My only
just say
concern is,
virtual
even
card.
it says virtual card, is that we do have other credit cards that are used, and many times anymore, we're seeing at restaurants or meals, or even other vendors,
Yeah.
even for small stuff, are charging a fee, the credit card fee passed along to the
Yeah.
consumer.
Yeah.
And I know that all the employees who have access to those credit cards may not necessarily catch it until after the fact. And my only concern is if we pass that language, if there could be any repercussions on them for
Yeah.
not missing that, since it's,
Well, the changes just, as Bridget said, the changes just address the virtual card, virtual, I guess is the word. And what you're saying is with the existing credit cards.
is that gonna change anything if you use it in a virtual manner or
Okay, I
anything?
see what you're saying,
Yeah.
in addition to traditional credit cards. Well, let's just say the finance department can pay with the virtual card. So I don't think the new language is a problem, but I don't know if you gotta do some cleanup on the old language where, because you don't wanna get people in a jam charging something, like Jonathan said, when you don't even see that's there.
So you check out. a lot.
Or sometimes until after you already paid it.
Or you go back the next step,
You
yeah.
left the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we want to leave it like this for the virtual card, and then, like we said, we could pay attention the next few months and see what happens. It's up to you guys what you prefer.
Just double checking a few of the other.
I'd be fine with going ahead. You need to get the virtual card in place, right?
Yes, I
This one's not an emergency, but.
right, because I think it's due in June.
I wanna say June.
Yeah.
Being a non-emergency.
But then, like you say, you can noodle how you handle the other,
The regular.
yeah, and how.
Yeah, if we're seeing a lot of card uses that has fees attached to it, where traditionally there used to not be a fee attached to it.
Right.
What would be easier for you to just move this forward and?
Maybe just see if,
The way
I'm okay moving forward if we want to have Kate just do a quick review and get her opinion on it, just to make certain if we
Before we
need an
actually
adjustment to it, then.
Vote on it, then she could.
I'll talk to her tomorrow.
Okay. All right,
That's my only concern, is I don't want to put any employee in a situation that they may not catch right away.
all right, so then we'll just move that on as well, 3-0. Right, Tim? Yeah, okay. Investment policy update.
I found our investment policy from 2009. And
Nine, oh, okay.
February 11, 2009. We just want two updates that we're requesting. I did give it to our new investment broker, UBS, and they recommended that we add two items. The first one is commercial paper. The ORC does now allow for investment in commercial paper. It does require that the paper has two ratings by a commercial rating that is the highest level offered. So it's not like we can just go by whatever company. It does have to be the highest rating of two rating agencies, if that makes sense. And again, ORC is pretty detailed, so again, we would be following that. The other item is the length of the investment. Currently, the policy said 36 months, and ORC does require us to go out to 60 months. So just so we would have that available to us, I think I mentioned previously, we want to like ladder the investment so they come due at different times for various reasons, especially with the interest rates rising right now, but you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. So just to spread things out, and again, ORC does allow for 60 months.
So this is just really updating to the ORC code,
Correct.
more housekeeping.
More housekeeping. Sorry, yeah.
I'm okay.
I'm good with it.
Looks good.
Okay,
Thank you.
another one down. Now we get to the change order for the software. What, yeah,
This-
what got added on here?
This is a change order for Software Solutions, which is our finance software that we're training on right now, still getting it all set up. It's a project. Basically, what was included in the original agreement was pre-printed checks, pre-numbered checks, and this will give us the opportunity to have blank checks. The system will keep track of the numbers. Long run, it will be more cost effective because we won't have to order the check stock. We can just buy blank check stock. We won't need the pre-printed and the pre-numbered and everything. This will also allow us to have multiple users. So Mary Jo, Kayla, and I, especially as backups, we would all be able to have passwords and everything on our own computers to run payments. So it's $1,650 is the change order amount. It's basically an upgrade in the software printing of the checks.
If he has unlimited users, is it one of the differences as well? Is there unlimited people in the city there?
No, just the three of us.
Just the three that we
Just the three
designated,
in
right?
finance. I promise.
With only $1,650, you had to go through us for that?
Yes, because the original contract was.
It's because it's a change to the contract.
135,000 back in, I want to say October. Council passed that, so it would be a change order to that
I see.
contract.
And I don't believe they had any contingency on that, so.
Yeah, it did, that's what I was,
thought
my
there
next
was.
question.
Anticipate one out of five.
No, you usually don't, you're not
Yeah.
gonna find things.
I was surprised as well, and I asked them, is there anything else that we could run into?
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
I'm going back and
And now,
they told me no.
pretty much not, okay, all right. And we will move that on as an emergency, then, to keep that moving still, right?
Then I guess one question I have, I know it talks about the training, first year maintenance, and it looked like that was included,
Yes,
both of them.
yes.
Is the training just a one-time training, or is it just training throughout the year as you need it?
That's a good
Just-
question.
My experience has been with software installations, that it's training people upfront, not only the more in-depth training for Kayla, Amber, and Mary Jo, but then bringing in groups of department heads and training them, and then you essentially have training the trainers, so to speak, and then those people train their staff. Typically, they're not coming back throughout the year, unless the allotment was for a number of hours of training, and then it can be set up that you have your initial training, refresher training. So it just depends, and I don't recall, honestly, how Nathan and the company has this one set up, if it's a block of time or just that upfront initial training to get everybody up to speed, and then they kind of cut you loose. Because the training includes, playing in the sandbox, the virtual software with our numbers in it, our data in it, that allows them to actually make transactions to see how the software works. But it's also to train individuals like myself, Elaine, the other department and division heads, and the other account payable clerks that are in the various divisions. So we can give you specifics on that. We'll go back and chat with David.
I just think it'd be good if there's a way that, because I know how it works for me with training is I listen up front, and then until you actually dive into it, you don't get the other questions until about a month or two later. And it would be nice if they had some follow-up with that, with a little bit, with the higher package. Just a thought, this is just
And they
how I
will.
live.
They've been
Okay.
very good. Everything's been virtual, so they have been recording all of our trainings,
Okay.
so we can go back anytime.
Can we
They
watch
have-
it?
Yes, and they have actual videos on their website that we can look at, plus we have our videos now, documentation. They've been great so far. But yeah, this training, I think it's just for the Edge solution, just the check printing.
Okay.
And that company's been very good to work with already too. that
Is there
Edge.
other benefits by moving up to this other tier that you enjoy as well from what we had before?
It's not on a dot matrix printer with the little dots on the side. So we're jumping from that. We're kind of skipping a couple of check formats in between, if you will, then going to the blank check stock. And it's
Modern day technology.
yes. They'll design our checks for this. They'll put our city logo on there. They have security, one of our logos.
I see we have up to 2 logos, so. So we can have a couple on there.
Well, we have payroll checks and we have AP
Okay.
checks, so.
No, I don't have any issues. I just was more curious on what some of the upgrades, because it's not just going with the blank checks. It looks like there's some nice additions on there.
Yes.
Again, today I just feel like diving into all the weeds as much as I can.
Oh, yeah, the digital signatures, I think the new package gives us 2, where right now, the original only had 1
Okay.
digital signature. So it includes all that and the setup and everything. So it'll be secure. It'll have all the passwords.
Perfect.
Good. 2, Tim?
Yep.
All right. Okay. The quarterly income tax review. Steve?
Good evening.
Hi.
Does anybody need a copy of the report? Everybody have? one?
I have it up here. I'm looking at it right now.
I like your
so-
haircut though, by the way.
Yeah.
All right, so for the month of March, we ended up collecting at 1.7 million, which put us about 7% up for that same time period last year. So fairly strong month. If you look, you'll see that we were pretty much across all 3 of the different account types, we were up compared with that same time period last year. So things looking good from that standpoint. And then on the second page of the report, you'll see our year-to-date. So we've got the first quarter of 2022 now reported. Comparing that with 2021, you'll see we're at 6.5 million, puts us 33% up for the year-to-date figure. However, as you might recall, we have the large dollar tax payment in February that's still kind of skewing our results.
That's still in there, huh?
Yeah, so I've been looking at our figures with that high dollar payment removed, just to see how that is impacting things. And if we would remove that 1.2 million payment for our year-to-date figure, we would be at 8.5% up. So we're still tracking positive.
Yes.
Just maybe not 33% up.
Okay.
And I'm still waiting for word from the state. They've not gotten back to me yet, and it could be months before we ever really get any kind of answer on this. We did have to refund a taxpayer one time through the state. It was a $5,000 payment that they had made, and the state requested it back probably about a year later. So this type of thing potentially could be out there for a year before we really know what is going to really transpire with that, whether we're going to have to refund it all, or if we keep some portion of it, or if we keep all of it. So unfortunately, I
Strange,
don't
yeah.
have an answer yet.
Right.
It is an estimated tax payment, and the taxpayer can change their estimate at any point in time with the state. And so it could be tomorrow we could get a report from the state.
It's
Says
an estimated tax payment. Won't they get worked out when they actually
correct.
file then at the end
Yes,
of the year?
yes. We should expect that at some point there will be that reconciliation.
Yeah.
And the state will say, yep, it's yours, keep it. Or they'll say, oh, I'm sorry, they paid you too much and you need to refund some back.
The way I'm going with that right now is that it's going to happen.
Well, and the thing that I shared with finance and administration on this high dollar payment is it's unusual in my perspective from the standpoint that prior to this taxpayer opting into the state's centralized collection process, so prior to 2018, they were reporting losses and they were not paying any tax to the city of Perrysburg. 2018 and 2019, we don't have as much visibility on what they're reporting at the state level, but we have not received a single payment for 18 or 19. So we've got a active account for this taxpayer with no payment history, and then boom, all of a sudden we get this 1.2.
Maybe they are playing catch up then.
And so kind of just begs the question, why?
Yeah.
What's going on? And we don't have any answers yet. So still suspicious in my mind, and I'm just kind of proceeding cautiously.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Steve?
Nope.
All right.
All right, thanks.
You're back on. Amber here?
Okay. I Next, we have expenditures greater than $5,000 for March, if anyone has any questions.
I just, is MTM Transit, is that Perrysburg Transit?
Yes, it is.
That's the corporate,
Yes.
that's probably been on here before and I never
Yep.
picked it up. And it says paratransit service. I don't know if it's really technically paratransit, but doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
I think that might be how the invoice comes in or the PO set up, but yeah. And they've changed their names, I think, a couple times over the years,
Oh,
so,
okay.
It used to be right,
well, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, they were right when they got hired in.
Yeah, and they got bought out by MCU.
Or, you know, this is kind of an aside, but I'll make it quick. This whole thing where they're not offering service on Sunday, is that gonna change sometime soon?
Yes, they hope so, because what they saw is they saw a drastic decline in requests for ridership, and they lost a dispatcher that they're trying to replace, so the two things coming together, they just didn't have enough bodies to service a Sunday where they actually weren't getting any calls for service. So they're monitoring it, and they fully intend to bring somebody back in. They're out looking for a new dispatcher now, and they're hoping that the request for rides on a Sunday will also go up.
Okay, because I would think if they're not gonna offer service on Sunday on an ongoing basis, we'd probably renegotiate our deal with them.
I don't think our contracts specify the days of the week or the hours of the days of the week, because their whole payment mechanism is based on revenue hours, so it is based on the hours that they're operating.
Okay,
So if they're operating less hours, they're gonna get paid less as well.
okay, so we're protected if
Yes,
they get out of the Sunday transit business altogether.
yeah, and I think there's also a plus or minus point where they can come back, or we can go to them and talk about renegotiating the deal, but I don't think they've hit that yet.
Oh, okay.
But their goal is to bring back Sunday service.
Super duper.
I appreciate asking the question, because I was going to ask the same thing. So.
Yeah. Tim, I see you got one checked off, I do too as well, is that's the
Just curious,
accreditation.
It's a small amount, but it's the Center for Public Safety Excellence.
Excellent, yes, that is the accreditation process that the fire division is going
For
through.
the fire? Okay.
Similar to what the police division went through last year. It's a different entity that does police versus fire.
Mhm.
So this is their, the admittance fee, if you will, that starts their actual accreditation process clock ticking.
No,
And they have X amount of months in which to complete all the documentation that's required. Then the accreditation team comes in, reviews it, and they'll do that a couple of times, I think, along the way, and give them pointers and hints on how to make sure that they're checking all the boxes appropriately and providing all the information. So yeah, this is a kind of like a one-time, I'll say, registration fee.
This pays for their visit here?
Yes.
This- Okay. Got it.
I did notice a large charge for business cards. Do we have quite a few business cards come?
And when you say this, I mean.
This is
credit
business
card.
card and.
Oh, that is the Bank of America credit card.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's how the vendor's set up, you know.
I was gonna say, that's a
send
lot of
payments
business
to
cards
the-
we just bought for everyone in there.
Passing them out.
That's
down
the
whole city.
citywide credit card.
yeah, didn't you get yours?
I was gonna say, I haven't gotten one yet.
I got
Everybody
mine
gets a
along
business
with
card.
the card.
That's why I thought we might have been doing the pictures earlier, so we can get them on the cards.
The Ohio Cat charge for $19,000 for a compressor, I'm just curious what department, where's that?
That's service, and that's a very large pull behind compressor.
I didn't see that come through service.
It's under
Probably
25.
wouldn't know that
Because it's
that
under
dollar
25.
amount,
Under 25.
But it was in their budget.
Yeah, specifically.
All right,
That council saw that line item in the budget.
okay.
See the charge for that rec desk, which I know we'll be talking about in Recreation Committee, so.
Yes.
Yeah,
Rec desk, what is rec desk?
it's that new portal to do the rec programs.
Oh, yeah,
So
for the summer programs, yeah, nice.
so
Okay.
we'll be talking about that in the next meeting if you want to stay around and hear about that.
I
I'll
may.
hear in the minutes.
Any other for the expenditures? Anything else? Okay, we move right on to the health insurance funding.
Okay, the health insurance fund ended March with a balance of over $400,000, $409,137. So that continues to look good. No issues there.
As good as it's looked in a year and a half, I can see here.
Any potential large claims coming in?
Not that I am aware of, nothing large that we're expecting, so hopefully that,
Build up then.
yeah.
It's really good news. All right. Let's see. Any other business?
Nothing at this point.
Boy, it seems like a. Just to be
Well
like-
done.
I do want to
Chicken,
follow,
chicken.
Bridget, if you don't mind, at some point, sit down with you and Kate on the items I mentioned at the last meeting regarding the short-term rentals and things of that nature. So,
All right. Well, then, if there's no other business, be adjourned.
Way to go.